Chaos erupted across the diplomatic vessel as the emergency lights bathed the corridors in pulsing crimson. The sound of metal tearing against metal shrieked through the hull. Diana Thornton, royal warrior princess of the Calarian Empire, spun gracefully amid the fray, her obsidian armor gleaming with each precise movement. Her energy pike hummed with deadly power as she dispatched yet another Raxian marauder, but for every attacker that fell, two more seemed to materialize from the smoke-filled breach. Commander Druven and the Royal Guard formed a protective circle around her, their formations perfect as they had been trained since birth. Yet even they were being overwhelmed by the sheer brutality of the assault. Bodies of her finest warriors already lay motionless on the deck. Through the chaos, Diana caught sight of him, Michael Reed, her human husband, standing calmly near the viewport. His posture relaxed, almost indifferent to the life-or-death struggle unfolding around him. How could he be so calm when death was moments away? His gray hair and weathered face betrayed no emotion, no fear. Just that same placid expression she had grown to despise during their brief political marriage. A massive Raxian brute charged toward the unprotected human energy axe raised high. Diana opened her mouth to shout a warning, though why she bothered to care about the weak earthling was beyond her understanding. But before she could utter a sound, something extraordinary happened. The Raxian raider locked eyes with Michael. Recognition flashed across the alien's scarred face, followed by something Diana had never witnessed in a Raxian warrior, pure, unbridled terror. "It's the Arizona Ghost." The marauder gasped, his weapon faltering mid-swing. "No one said he would be here." In that frozen moment, everything changed. Michael Reed's gentle demeanor vanished like morning mist under a scorching sun. His body language transformed, shoulders squaring, stance widening. The mild-mannered diplomat was gone, replaced by something ancient and lethal. The old man moved. 2 weeks earlier, Diana Thornton stood rigid beside her new husband under the artificial sky of the Interplanetary Alliance base in Nevada. The marriage ceremony had just concluded, a cold, sterile affair of political necessity rather than choice. Diplomatic officials from 17 species mingled awkwardly around them, pretending this union wasn't the result of a desperate peace treaty. The harsh desert sun outside was barely filtered by the complex's massive domes that blended alien technology with traditional American military architecture. The scent of the Nevada desert still permeated the air, or dust, sage, and heat despite the environmental controls. Diana's father, Emperor Vorrigan of Kellar, had made his intentions clear before departing. "This marriage seals our surrender without calling it such. Maintain your dignity. Learn their weaknesses. Remember, you represent the warrior heritage of our people." His ceremonial armor had gleamed as he boarded his ship, leaving her behind on this primitive planet as little more than a glorified hostage. Her new husband, Michael Reed, stood quietly beside her at the reception. At 68 Earth years, his body appeared fragile compared to Calarian males in their prime. His silver hair was neatly trimmed, his posture straight but not imposing. The formal military-style suit he wore seemed to hang slightly loose on his lean frame. Only his eyes suggested anything remarkable. Clear blue, watchful, missing nothing, despite his apparent nonchalance. "I understand this isn't what either of us would have chosen." Michael spoke softly, his first words to her since the ceremonial vows. "But perhaps we can make the best of our arrangement." His voice carried no command, no challenge, just a simple statement that somehow irritated her more than any boast would have. Diana turned slightly, her ceremonial armor shifting with the subtle movement. "There is nothing to make the best of human. This union exists on paper, only a shameful concession after your people's—" She paused, unwilling to acknowledge the truth aloud. "After our successful defense," Michael offered, no hint of pride or mockery in his tone. Just that same infuriating calm. 3 years of war that neither side truly wanted ending in a stalemate that benefits everyone. That's the official narrative, at least." Diana's eyes narrowed. The official narrative conveniently omitted how the primitive humans had somehow repelled the most advanced armada in 7 star systems. Her people, the mighty Calarians, conquerors of the Proxima Quadrant, masters of gravitational weaponry, fought to a standstill by primitives who had barely achieved rudimentary space travel. "This is temporary," she stated flatly. "Soon enough, the true balance will reassert itself." Michael simply nodded, his gaze drifting to the viewport overlooking the desert landscape. "The balance always finds its way." He agreed, though something in his tone suggested they might not share the same understanding of what that balance might be. The diplomatic vessel gleamed against the backdrop of Earth's orbit, its sleek Calarian design marking it as one of the Imperial fleet's premier ships repurposed for this peacekeeping mission. Diana's private quarters were spacious by military standards, though she found the sterile environment lacking the ceremonial touches of her royal chambers on Kellar. She stood at the viewport watching Earth slowly rotate below a swirl of blue oceans and brown land masses partially obscured by white cloud formations. Her ancestral home, Kellar, was a planet of purple skies and crystalline cities perched on floating mountains. This Earth seemed so ordinary by comparison, yet it had produced warriors capable of standing against her people. A soft chime announced a visitor. Diana straightened, composing her features into the impassive mask expected of Calarian royalty. "Enter," she commanded. Michael Reed stepped into her quarters carrying a small clay pot with a tiny gnarled tree no more than 8 inches tall. Its needles were a deep green, its trunk twisted as if shaped by unseen winds over many years. "A peace offering," he said, placing the miniature tree on a shelf near the viewport. "An Arizona pine bonsai from my home. They survive in some of the harshest conditions on Earth, extreme heat, drought, poor soil. Yet they endure and thrive where other species would perish." Diana glanced at the plant with poorly disguised disinterest. "Is this meant to impress me that your vegetation is as stubborn as your species?" A small smile touched the corners of Michael's mouth. "Perhaps, or maybe I just wanted something from home to accompany me on this journey." He gently adjusted the position of the pot, ensuring it received adequate light from the stars. On Earth, these trees can live for centuries, witnessing the rise and fall of civilizations while standing silent guard over the desert. There was something in his voice, a subtle shift in tone when he spoke of home, that caught Diana's attention despite herself. A flicker of genuine emotion beneath the diplomatic veneer. "Your quarters are adequate," she asked, more from obligation than concern. "More than adequate, thank you. Though I admit I miss the feel of real paper books. Your digital libraries are comprehensive but lack a certain tactile satisfaction." Michael clasped his hands behind his back, assuming an at-ease stance that betrayed his military background. Diana studied him more closely. For a human of advanced age, he moved with surprising economy and grace. No wasted motions, no trembling in his hands, or unsteadiness in his stance. His file had mention in military service, though the details were suspiciously sparse. "You served in Earth's military forces," she stated, seeking confirmation. "I did. A lifetime ago, it seems." Michael's expression remained neutral, offering nothing beyond the basic acknowledgement. "Yet now you serve as a diplomat. We all find new purposes as time passes. Warriors become teachers, soldiers become peacemakers." He gestured toward the viewport. "Even battleships become diplomatic vessels." Diana felt a flicker of irritation at his evasiveness. "My people are born warriors. We do not simply become something else. Every species adapts or perishes, Princess Diana. Even the mighty Calarians." Michael bowed slightly, a perfect execution of Calarian courtesy. "I'll leave you to your contemplation. We have a long journey ahead." As he turned to leave, Diana noticed something that had escaped her initial assessment: the way he scanned the room upon entering, his awareness of exits, the subtle adjustments in his posture when others moved nearby in the corridor. These were not the habits of a simple diplomat. They were the ingrained responses of someone who had lived with constant threat. Perhaps this human husband would prove more interesting than she had initially assumed. Days passed aboard the diplomatic vessel, with Diana deliberately avoiding Michael whenever possible. When protocol demanded their presence together, she maintained a cold formality that discouraged conversation. Yet she found herself observing him from a distance, curious despite her determination to remain disinterested. Michael spent hours reading from a worn paper book, a historical account of Earth's Second World War she discovered when accessing the ship's monitoring systems. He made notes in the margins with a primitive graphite tool, his handwriting precise and economical. Each morning he tended to his small pine tree with meticulous care, measuring water precisely and adjusting its position to capture the optimal amount of starlight. Most surprisingly, he had begun studying the Calarian language, a complex system of consonant clusters and tonal inflections that few non-Calarians ever mastered. The ship's educational system logged his progress, revealing an unexpected aptitude for linguistic patterns. In the ship's training arena, Diana maintained her rigorous combat regimen. Calarian warriors never allowed their skills to dull, even during peaceful diplomatic missions. 3 hours daily she spent honing her techniques against holographic opponents and combat drones programmed to exploit any weakness. During one such session, she became aware of being watched. Michael stood quietly at the entrance to the arena, observing her movements with an intensity that belied his usual calm demeanor. "Is there something you require?" Diana demanded, deactivating the combat simulation with a sharp gesture. "Just admiring your technique," Michael replied. The Calarian combat form emphasizes powerful direct strikes over defensive postures. Effective against most opponents, I imagine. Diana wiped perspiration from her brow with a towel. "Our warriors train from childhood. Few enemies stand before a Calarian assault for long." "Except humans," Michael said quietly, the observation hanging between them. Diana's eyes narrowed. "A temporary aberration in the natural order. Your species caught us unprepared with unconventional tactics." Michael stepped into the arena, his simple gray training attire a stark contrast to Diana's elaborate combat armor. "May I?" He gestured toward one of the practice staffs racked along the wall. Curiosity overcame her initial impulse to dismiss him. "You wish to train?" She couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. "Just a few basic movements to stay limber." Old habits. Michael selected a staff testing its weight and balance with practiced motions. "At my age, one must make concessions to maintenance rather than improvement." Diana stepped back, giving him space while secretly activating her ocular implant to record his movements for later analysis. She expected the awkward fumbling, typical of humans attempting to wield Calarian weapons. What she witnessed instead defied her expectations entirely. Michael moved through a series of forms that resembled nothing in the Calarian combat archives. His style was fluid, economical, with no wasted energy or flourish. The staff became an extension of his body, spinning and striking with precision that belied his age. Though lacking the raw power of Calarian techniques, his movements suggested a different philosophy of combat altogether, one based on redirecting force rather than overwhelming opposition. After several minutes, he returned the staff to its rack, his breathing only slightly elevated. "Thank you for indulging an old man's exercise." Diana struggled to maintain her imperious demeanor. "Where did you learn such techniques? They are not standard Earth military training." "I've had many teachers over many years," Michael replied with his characteristic understatement. "When one lives on a death world, as your people call Earth, adaptation becomes second nature." Before Diana could press further, the ship's communications system chimed. Commander Draven's voice filled the arena. "Princess Diana, your presence is requested on the command deck immediately. We've received an urgent transmission from the Interplanetary Council." Diana cast a final measuring glance at Michael before striding toward the exit. "This discussion isn't concluded." "Few things ever are," Michael replied enigmatically, falling into step beside her. The command deck hummed with activity as officers monitored the vessel's systems with the disciplined efficiency expected of the Imperial fleet. Commander Draven, head of Diana's personal guard, stood at attention as she entered. His obsidian armor gleamed under the ambient lighting, the ceremonial scars on his face marking his distinguished battle record. "What is this urgent matter?" Diana demanded, taking her place at the command station. Draven activated the holographic display, revealing a star chart with their current trajectory highlighted. "We've received a priority alert from Council headquarters. Our plotted course takes us through the outer boundary of Sector 947, colloquially known as the Mist Zone." Diana frowned. The Mist Zone was notorious in interstellar shipping circles, a region of space where vessels occasionally disappeared without explanation. Official reports attributed the losses to natural phenomena, radiation storms, gravitational anomalies. Unofficial accounts spoke of marauders operating beyond jurisdiction of the major powers. "Rerouting would add 7 days to our journey," Draven continued. "The Council has left the decision to your discretion given the diplomatic importance of this mission." Diana considered the options. Calarian protocol demanded efficiency above caution. A warrior race did not shy from potential danger. Yet this mission carried political implications beyond her personal preferences. "What do the ship's sensors indicate?" she asked. "Nothing unusual at present," Draven replied. "Standard background radiation, no significant gravitational disturbances." Long-range scans show minimal traffic in the sector. Diana noticed Michael studying the holographic display with unusual intensity, his eyes tracking minute details that most would overlook. "You have insights to offer, diplomat," she inquired, her tone making the title sound like an insult. Michael stepped closer to the display, eyes narrowed slightly. The mist zone corresponds roughly with the spatial coordinates of what Earth authorities designated as the Bermuda Triangle of space, a region where several early Earth exploration vessels lost contact. Earth vessels were primitive, Draven stated dismissively. Their disappearance proves nothing. Perhaps, Michael conceded, though I note that the pattern of disappearances shows a 30-day cycle. According to your ship's chronometer, we would be passing through during the peak of that cycle. Dana raised an eyebrow. You've studied interstellar navigation hazards as part of your diplomatic training. I make a habit of understanding dangers, whatever form they take. Michael traced a finger along an alternative route on the display. This trajectory adds only 4 days, not 7, and skirts the boundary of Alliance territory. Their patrol vessels provide additional security against natural phenomena. Draven bristled at the suggestion. Our Imperial vessel requires no external security. We carry sufficient armaments to handle any threat. The best battle is the one never fought, Michael replied evenly, an old Earth wisdom that has served us well. Diana felt the familiar irritation rising at his calm certainty. Your caution borders on cowardice, human. Calarians do not fear shadows. Michael's blue eyes met hers directly, something flickering behind them that gave her pause. I don't suggest fear, princess. Merely prudence. There are shadows, and then there are things that create shadows. Knowing the difference has kept me alive for 68 years on what you call a death world. The subtle challenge in his tone was unmistakable, though delivered with perfect diplomatic courtesy. Diana found herself torn between dismissing his concerns and acknowledging the unexpected strategic insight they revealed. We maintain our original course, she decided finally, but increase sensor sweep frequency and place defense systems on heightened alert status. If these shadows manifest, we will be prepared. Michael bowed slightly acceptance without agreement. As you wish. He turned to leave the command deck but paused at the threshold. Though perhaps it would be wise to review the ship's security protocols. Even the strongest fortress has its vulnerabilities. After he departed, Draven moved closer to Diana. The human oversteps his position, he muttered. He speaks of our vessel's systems as if he understands Calarian technology. Indeed, Diana's gaze lingered on the doorway where Michael had disappeared. Arrange a level 3 security sweep of all systems and access the complete file on our human diplomat, not the public version, but the Imperial Intelligence Assessment. Draven's expression darkened. You suspect deception. I suspect there is more to Michael Reed than diplomatic pleasantries and philosophical musings. Diana studied the trajectory display once more. Much more. In his private quarters, Michael Reed sat cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed in meditation. The small pine bonsai rested on a shelf before him, its gnarled branches casting delicate shadows in the starlight streaming through the viewport. His breathing was measured, controlled 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out, a rhythm maintained through decades of discipline. Behind closed eyelids, his mind methodically cataloged the ship's layout, security measures, crew rotations, and potential weaknesses. Old habits indeed, survival mechanisms ingrained through experiences that his diplomatic file conveniently omitted. He opened his eyes when the ship's sensors registered a subtle change in engine output, imperceptible to most passengers but obvious to someone attuned to such details. They had entered the outer boundary of the mist zone. Michael rose fluidly to his feet, no hint of age in the movement. From beneath his mattress, he retrieved a small, leather-bound journal and fountain pen, anachronistic tools in an age of digital communication, but immune to electronic surveillance. He began sketching the ship's defensive array from memory, adding notations about response times and blind spots he had observed during his casual explorations. A soft chime from his personal console interrupted his work. A message notification blinked on the screen, an automated alert he had programmed into the ship's security system. Someone was accessing his personnel file, attempting to penetrate beyond the diplomatic cover story. Michael smiled slightly. The princess was becoming curious. Good. Curiosity indicated engagement, An engagement was the first step toward genuine communication. Still, he preferred to control the flow of information rather than have his true background exposed prematurely. He returned the journal to its hiding place and activated his own secure communication device, a simple-looking Earth wristwatch that contained technology far beyond anything the Kalarians would expect from primitive humans. A series of taps sent an encrypted burst transmission toward Earth, bypassing the ship's communication systems entirely. The message was brief: crossing threshold, possible interest aroused, maintaining cover, confirmed syndicate activity patterns. Response came within minutes. Confirmed, 3 vessels lost in target zone within last cycle. Intelligence suggests organized operation, not random piracy. Proceed with caution. Extract if compromised. Michael acknowledged receipt and deactivated the device. Extraction was not an option he contemplated seriously. Too much depended on this mission, not just the fragile peace between Earth and Kalar, but the deeper operation that only a handful of individuals knew existed. A gentle knock at his door drew his attention. Michael composed his features into the mild expression of the unassuming diplomat before responding. Enter. Diana Thornton stepped into his quarters, her regal bearing making the space seem suddenly smaller. She had exchanged her combat armor for a formal diplomatic uniform, though the ceremonial dagger at her hip reminded that Kalarians never truly set aside their warrior identity. Princess, Michael inclined his head respectfully. To what do I owe the honor? Diana's violet eyes surveyed his quarters with calculated assessment. I wish to continue our earlier discussion. Your combat techniques were unexpected. Michael gestured toward a seating area. Would you care for refreshment? I've been experimenting with brewing tea using Kalarian herbs and earth methods. The results are interesting, if not entirely successful. I did not come for social pleasantries, Diana stated, though she did take the offered seat. I came for honesty. Honesty is subjective between cultures, Michael replied, preparing the tea despite her objection. What seems forthright to one species may appear evasive to another. Diana's patience visibly thinned. Stop speaking in diplomatic circles. Your file describes a minor military career followed by bureaucratic service. Yet you move like a warrior and think like a strategist. Explain. Michael handed her a cup of steaming tea before taking a seat across from her. My military service was neither extensive nor particularly distinguished according to official records. 22 years in various capacities, retiring with honors, but no special recognition. And unofficially, Diana pressed. Michael sipped his tea, considering his response carefully. Earth's history is filled with conflicts that never made it into official histories. Operations conducted in shadows by people who officially didn't exist in places where we officially never went. You were one such person. Sometimes I'm not entirely certain what I was. Michael replied, his gaze drifting to the viewport and the stars beyond. When you've worn enough masks, played enough roles, the boundaries blur. Diana set down her untouched tea. You're being deliberately cryptic. I'm being as honest as current circumstances permit. Michael's eyes refocused on her with unexpected intensity. Just as you are constrained by your duties to your empire and your father's expectations. The observation struck uncomfortably close to truth, and Diana's expression hardened. My duty is clear and honorable. I serve the empire without deception. Do you, Michael asked quietly. Then you've told me everything about why the emperor sent his only daughter to marry a human more than twice her age, about the true state of the Kalarian fleet after our conflict, about the political factions within your imperial council that oppose this peace treaty. Diana rose abruptly. You overstep human. As do you, princess. Michael remained seated, his calm unbroken. We all have our secrets and obligations. Perhaps in time we can find enough common ground to share some of them honestly. Their standoff was interrupted by the ship's alert system activating with a pulsing amber light. Commander Draven's voice came through the communication system. Princess Diana, report to the command deck immediately. Security anomaly detected. Diana cast a final measuring look at Michael before turning to leave. This conversation isn't finished. They rarely are, Michael murmured as the door closed behind her. He waited exactly 60 seconds before following his movements. Now purposeful, his diplomat's demeanor subtly shifting towards something more alert and predatory. The ship's alert status had elevated from routine caution to active threat assessment earlier than he had anticipated. The mist zone had welcomed them into its embrace. Diana strode onto the command deck to find Draven supervising a comprehensive security sweep. The holographic displays showed multiple system diagnostics running simultaneously with security personnel moving efficiently through virtual models of the ship's subsystems. "Report," she commanded. Draven dismissed the junior officers with a gesture before responding. The automated security protocols detected an anomalous signal transmission bypassing our communication array. Origin point within the ship destination unknown. Specifics: burst transmission heavily encrypted. Our analysts are attempting to decode it now, but the encryption method is unusual, not consistent with known patterns. Diana's eyes narrowed. Source location: indeterminate. The transmission utilized the ship's power conduits to mask its origin point. Draven's expression darkened. This suggests sophisticated knowledge of Calarian ship design. Diana considered the implications. An unauthorized transmission from within a diplomatic vessel carrying a member of the royal family constituted a significant security breach. The timing shortly after entering the contested mist zone could not be coincidental. "Enhance security around all critical systems," she ordered. "Discreet surveillance on all non-Calarian personnel, particularly our diplomatic contingent." "Including your husband," Draven asked, his tone making clear his suspicion. "Especially him," Diana confirmed. "Though maintain protocol, he is officially my consort and Earth's representative. We observe, we do not accuse without evidence." Draven nodded stiffly. "There is one additional anomaly to report. During the security sweep, we detected subtle probing of our defensive systems, someone testing response times and access protocols." Diana felt a chill of foreboding. Internal or external? Unknown. The attempts were sophisticated enough to avoid triggering standard alarms. Draven activated another display showing security logs. "We only detected the pattern during the heightened sweep." "And what does this pattern suggest?" Diana asked, though she suspected the answer. "Someone mapping our vulnerabilities," Draven stated grimly. "Preparing for an assault or sabotage." Diana thought of Michael's unexpected suggestion to review security protocols, his convenient background in unofficial operations, his careful study of the ship's systems. The pieces assembled into a disturbing picture. "Assign your best security officer to shadow Michael Reed," she instructed. "Discreetly. I want to note his movements, his conversations, his activities." "And if he proves to be the source of these anomalies?" Draven asked. Diana's hand moved unconsciously to the ceremonial dagger at her hip. "Then we will have confirmed that Earth's commitment to peace is as false as their claims of technological limitation." She turned toward the viewport where the stars seemed somehow dimmer, the darkness between them deeper. "Continue sensor sweeps of surrounding space. If external threats emerge, I want no surprises." As if summoned by her words, the sensor array suddenly chimed with an urgent alert. The tactical officer called out, "Multiple objects detected on intercept course. Reading energy signatures consistent with stealth drives. Weapons powering up." The command deck erupted into controlled chaos as battle stations activated. Diana moved swiftly to the tactical display, assessing the threat with the practiced eye of a warrior born. 7 vessels Raxian configuration modified for deep space assault, the tactical officer reported. They emerged from the sensor shadow of a nearby asteroid cluster. Estimated intercept in 8 minutes. "Raxian marauders," Draven growled. "Pirates and scavengers. They would not dare attack an Imperial vessel without significant incentive." Diana's mind raced through strategic calculations. "Waste shields, arm defensive systems but hold fire unless directly engaged. Hail them on standard emergency frequencies." "Princess," Draven objected. "Calarian protocol demands immediate offensive response to protect royal presence." "This is a diplomatic vessel in neutral space," Diana countered. "We follow protocol, but we do not precipitate an interstellar incident without confirmation of hostile intent." The communications officer attempted the hail repeatedly before shaking his head. "No response on any frequency, Princess. They are jamming our long-range communications." Diana watched the tactical display as the Raxian vessels assumed an attack formation. Their approach vectors suggested well-coordinated strategy rather than opportunistic piracy. Curious timing, came a quiet voice from behind her. Michael Reed had entered the command deck unannounced, his gaze fixed on the tactical display. 7 vessels specifically positioned to block escape vectors while targeting communication arrays first. Draven stepped toward him, hand moving to his sidearm. This area is restricted during security alert. How did you access the command deck? Michael's attention remained on the display. The door was open. More importantly, those aren't standard Raxian attack patterns. They've been modified to counter specifically Calarian defensive formations. Diana studied him with renewed suspicion. You recognize Raxian attack patterns. I recognize methodical, well-funded operations when I see them, Michael replied evenly. This isn't random piracy. It's a calculated assault with specific objectives. Before Diana could respond, proximity alarms shrieked across the command deck. The tactical officer called out, "Energy spike! They're firing!" The ship shuddered as the first barrage struck their shields. Diana grabbed a console for balance, barking orders. Evasive pattern Keltor 3, return fire, defensive posture only. Michael moved with surprising agility as the deck pitched beneath them, maintaining perfect balance while officers around him stumbled. They're hurting us, he observed calmly, driving us toward the asteroid field where maneuverability will be limited. Diana shot him a sharp glance. If you have tactical suggestions, now would be the time. Reverse thrust at maximum, then full burn perpendicular to their formation plane, Michael said without hesitation. Their pattern assumes you'll either flee or engage directly. Do neither. Draven bristled. You presume to dictate battle tactics to Calarian warriors. Another impact rocked the ship harder this time. Warning indicators flashed across multiple systems. Shield capacity at 63%, the tactical officer reported. They're concentrating fire on our starboard propulsion systems. Diana made her decision. Execute the human suggestion. Perpendicular burn on my mark. The helmsman acknowledged the order, hands flying across the control interface. Diana watched the tactical display as the pursuing vessels adjusted to their unexpected maneuver, their formation momentarily disrupted. They're adapting quickly, Michael noted. Too quickly for standard pirate operations. They have military-grade tactical systems and trained personnel. Diana studied him as the ship executed its defensive maneuvers. You seem remarkably calm during an ambush, diplomat. Something flickered in Michael's eyes, a hardness at odds with his cultivated persona. I've seen worse. He gestured toward the secondary display. Your internal security systems are detecting a power surge near the aft cargo bay. They're not just attacking from outside. Draven instantly accessed the security feed, confirming the anomaly. Boarding preparations. They must have deployed stealth shuttles during the initial barrage. Diana's combat training took precedence over diplomatic concerns. Initiate internal security protocols. All non-essential personnel to secure quarters. Combat teams to defensive positions. She turned to Draven. Secure the command deck with the skeleton crew. You and I will lead the primary defense team personally. Draven nodded sharply before addressing Michael with barely concealed disdain. You should return to your quarters, human. Combat is no place for diplomats. Michael's expression remained neutral, though something in his posture had changed, a subtle shift that Diana's warrior instincts recognized as preparation. I'll accompany the princess. As her consort, my place is at her side during crisis. You would only be a liability, Draven insisted. Commander, Diana Mayon intervened, a new calculation forming. The human will accompany us. If nothing else, he may provide insight into the attacker's methods. And if Michael Reed had any connection to this suspiciously timed assault, better to keep him where she could observe his reactions directly. Michael inclined his head in acknowledgement, his eyes meeting hers with an unsettling perception. He understood her reasoning perfectly and appeared entirely untroubled by her suspicion. After you, princess, he gestured toward the door with unexpected formality. As they moved through the corridors toward the main assembly hall, the most defensible location with access to critical systems, Diana noted that Michael's movements had subtly changed. Gone was the slightly stooped posture of an aging diplomat. His stride was measured balance with the economy of motion that characterized veteran combatants. If you truly wish to help, she said quietly as they walked, now would be the time for honesty about your capabilities. Michael glanced at her, something almost like amusement touching his eyes. Let's just say I may be more useful than Commander Draven anticipates. Before Diana could press further, the ship shuddered violently. Emergency lighting activated as primary power fluctuated. The distant sound of metal tearing against metal echoed through the hull, the unmistakable signature of a forced breach. "They're through," Draven confirmed, checking tactical updates on his wrist display. "Multiple entry points, at least 24 boarders detected." Diana drew her ceremonial dagger, a weapon that was far more than mere symbol. Its crystalline edge could slice through standard armor as easily as flesh, and the hilt contained compressed energy charges for ranged combat if necessary. They reached the main assembly hall to find Diana's personal guard already assembled in defensive formation. 4 elite warriors, each bearing the scars of 100 battles, armed with energy pikes that hummed with deadly potential. "Form around the princess," Draven ordered, taking his place at that point position. "Standard Imperial protection formation." Diana stepped into the center of the protective circle protocol, momentarily overriding her preference to lead the defense personally. Her status as royal heir demanded protection above personal glory, a restriction she had always chafed against. Michael quietly took position near the viewport, slightly apart from the defensive formation. His posture was relaxed, yet attentive, hands empty of weapons, but positioned for quick response. Diana noted that he had positioned himself with clear sight lines to all entrances and a solid wall at his back, textbook tactical positioning. The sounds of combat grew closer. Energy weapons discharging, shouts of pain and rage, the distinctive crash of hand-to-hand combat. Draven's elite guards' tensed pikes raised in perfect unison. Kalarian blood flows in Kalarian veins. Draven intoned the traditional pre-battle invocation. Honor in combat, glory in victory, dignity in death. The main doors to the assembly hall shuddered under impact, metal buckling inward. A second blow dented the center seam. The third burst the doors open in an explosion of twisted metal and smoke. Raxian marauders poured through the breach, hulking figures in patchwork armor, faces scarred with ritual markings, wielding brutal energy axes and kinetic firearms. Their species was known throughout the quadrant for savagery and complete disregard for the conventions of civilized combat. Diana's guards engaged immediately, their formation moving with choreographed precision. Energy pikes crackled as they made contact with the first wave of attackers. One Raxian fell, then another, but more pressed forward, their superior numbers threatening to overwhelm even elite Kalarian warriors. Diana watched for her moment to enter the fray. Protocol demanded she remain protected until the last possible moment, but her warrior's blood called for combat. From the corner of her eye, she observed Michael still motionless by the viewport, watching the battle unfold with analytical detachment. The flow of combat shifted suddenly as a massive Raxian breached the defensive line, his energy axe cleaving through the armor of one of Diana's guards. The warrior fell with a gurgling cry, his pike clattering uselessly to the deck. Another guard was swarmed by 3 attackers, simultaneously dragged down by sheer brute force despite his superior technique. Within moments, the carefully constructed defense had collapsed into brutal chaos. Draven fought like a demon, his pike a blur of lethal energy, but even he was being forced backward by the sheer number of attackers. Diana abandoned protocol and stepped into combat, her ceremonial dagger flashing as she dispatched a Raxian who had broken through the defensive perimeter. Her combat training took over: strike, pivot, parry, strike again. Each movement precise, each blow potentially lethal. Yet for every attacker that fell, 2 more seemed to materialize from the smoke-filled breach. This was no random piracy, it was a dedicated assault force with specific objectives. Diana found herself being steadily pushed back toward the viewport where Michael still stood, apparently forgotten in the chaos of battle. As a particularly massive Raxian charged toward them, battle axe raised high, Diana prepared for a desperate defense. But before she could move, Michael's voice cut through the din of combat, calm, assured, carrying an authority she had never heard from him before. "Stand behind me, princess." The words were so unexpected that Diana actually hesitated, her combat rhythm broken by sheer surprise. In that frozen moment, she saw the Raxian raider recognize Michael for the first time. The alien's eyes widened, his charge faltering. "The Arizona ghost," the marauder gasped, fear replacing bloodlust in his yellowed eyes. "No one said he would be here," Michael stepped forward, and everything about him had changed. His posture, his expression, his very presence radiated lethal capability. The mild-mannered diplomat had vanished, replaced by something ancient and dangerous, a predator who had walked battlefields across decades. The rumors of my retirement, Michael said softly, have been greatly exaggerated. The Raxian overcame his momentary shock and swung his energy axe in a devastating arc meant to cleave Michael in two. Diana opened her mouth to shout a warning, but the words died in her throat as she witnessed what happened next. Michael didn't try to dodge the blow. Instead, he stepped into it, moving with such precise timing that the axe's handle, rather than its blade, impacted his forearm. A sharp twist of his body redirected the weapon's momentum, while his other hand simultaneously delivered a knife-edge strike to the Raxian's throat. The alien, easily twice Michael's mass, dropped like a stone, his nervous system short-circuited by the precision strike. Michael smoothly appropriated the fallen marauder's weapon, testing its weight with practiced familiarity. What followed was not combat as Diana understood it. There was no honor or form, no recognizable martial discipline. Michael moved through the Raxian attackers like a force of nature, economical, ruthless, and absolutely lethal. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just the mechanical precision of someone who had spent a lifetime perfecting the art of efficient violence. He used the environment itself as a weapon, redirecting attackers into furniture, using their own momentum against them, creating choke points to neutralize their numerical advantage. When he employed the captured energy axe, it was with the practiced skill of someone intimately familiar with the weapon despite its alien design. Araxian fired a burst from a kinetic rifle. Michael didn't dodge. Instead, he used the body of a fallen attacker as a shield, then closed distance in the millisecond gap between bursts. The rifle clattered to the deck as its owner's arm was dislocated with surgical precision. Diana had been raised in a culture that venerated combat prowess above all. She had witnessed the Empire's greatest warriors in battle, had herself been trained by masters of every Kalarian fighting discipline. Yet she had never seen anything like this perfect economy of violence, this absolute mastery of survival. This was not the combat of a civilization that prized honor and glory. This was the fighting style of a species that had evolved on a world where death lurked in every shadow, where survival itself was a daily victory. This was what it meant to come from a death world. Within minutes, the tide of battle had turned. The remaining Raxians, witnessing the destruction of their comrades, began a tactical retreat toward the breached doors. Michael let them go, standing amid the carnage like a statue, his breathing only slightly elevated, despite the exertion. Drevin stared at the human with naked shock, his own combat stance still rigid with anticipation of further threat. Diana slowly lowered her dagger, reassessing everything she thought she knew about her human husband. "What are you?" she asked quietly. Michael turned to her, and for an instant she still saw that predator in his eyes, ancient, calculating, utterly without mercy. Then he blinked, and the diplomat returned the transition so seamless it might have been imagined. "Just a survivor," he answered simply, "from a world that teaches its lessons harshly." He handed the appropriated energy axe to Drevin with a respectful nod before turning his attention to Diana. "Are you injured, Princess?" She shook her head, still processing what she had witnessed. "You've been deceiving me, us, this entire time." "Not deceiving," Michael corrected gently. "Simplifying. There are aspects of my background that would unnecessarily complicate our diplomatic mission." Drevin stepped forward, his expression hardening from shock to suspicion. "You're no diplomat. What is your true purpose aboard this vessel?" Michael's reply was interrupted by the tactical alert system blaring once more. The ship's AI announces warning: secondary breach detected in engineering section. Unauthorized access to primary systems imminent. "This isn't over," Diana told Michael, her violet eyes boring into his. "But right now we have a ship to defend." Michael nodded, that dangerous focus returning to his eyes. "Indeed we do. And I suspect our visitors have only just begun their real mission." As they moved toward the new threat, Diana found herself reevaluating everything about this human she had so easily dismissed. Whatever Michael Reed truly was, he was far more dangerous and far more valuable than she had imagined possible. The question remained, was he an ally in this crisis, or was he somehow its architect? The answer, she suspected, would determine not only their survival, but the future of the fragile peace between their worlds. Blood gleamed on polished metal as Diana Thornton pushed through the aftermath of combat, her ceremonial dagger still drawn. She stepped over fallen Raxian marauders, their massive forms contorted in death. The assembly hall, once a symbol of diplomatic formality, now resembled a battlefield, which she reflected grimly was precisely what it had become. Commander Draven barked orders to surviving guards, establishing a defensive perimeter around the breached entrance. Michael Reed moved with unexpected purpose beside her, no trace of his diplomatic facade remaining. His movements were fluid, economical, a stark contrast to the stiff formality he had maintained during their weeks together. He had acquired a Raxian kinetic pistol from one of the fallen attackers and checked its charge with practiced efficiency. The secondary breach is in engineering, Michael observed, consulting a ship schematic on a wall terminal. If they gain access to propulsion systems, we lose all tactical advantage. Diana studied him through narrowed eyes. The man who had moments ago dispatched a dozen Raxian warriors single-handedly now discussed ship systems with the casual familiarity of a seasoned fleet officer. You seem remarkably well-versed in Calarian vessel design for a human diplomat. Michael's blue eyes met hers without apology. Situational awareness is a survival trait. I memorized your ship's layout within hours of boarding. He adjusted the weapon settings without looking at the controls. We need to move quickly. This attack is too coordinated to be random piracy. Princess, Draven interrupted his expression hard with suspicion. I strongly advise against allowing the human access to sensitive areas. His sudden expertise raises serious questions about his true purpose aboard this vessel. Diana weighed her options with the cold calculation of royal training. The human had demonstrated combat skills far beyond his diplomatic cover story. He had recognized the attack pattern before her own tactical officers. And most disturbing, the Raxian had recognized him, calling him by a name that carried weight even among hardened marauders. Your concern is noted, Commander, she replied formally. But at present, defending this vessel takes priority over all other considerations. The human remains with us. She turned to Michael, keeping her voice low. But understand this, I will have answers when this crisis is contained. Complete answers. Something resembling respect flickered in Michael's eyes. Fair enough. He gestured toward the corridor leading to engineering. Shall we? They moved through the ship's corridors with tactical precision, Diana and Draven at point two, surviving guards flanking and Michael covering their rear. Emergency lighting bathed everything in dim crimson, casting long shadows that stretched and warped with their movements. Distant sounds of combat echoed through the vessel's sporadic energy discharges and the distinctive crack of kinetic weapons. Diana accessed a secure communication channel on her wrist device. Status report. The tactical officer's voice came through with bursts of static. Multiple boarding parties, Princess. At least 30 hostiles aboard. They're targeting critical systems, communications, propulsion, and life support. Security teams engaged but outnumbered. And outside, the Raxian vessels maintain attack formation, shields holding at 42%. Long-range communications remain jammed. Diana processed the information with grim efficiency. Standard piracy operations focused on cargo theft or ransom. This assault pattern suggested different objectives, sabotage or possibly capture. The methodical targeting of critical systems indicated military-grade planning. As they approached engineering, Michael suddenly raised his hand in a universal signal to halt. The group froze as he tilted his head, slightly listening. Diana strained to hear what had caught his attention, but detected nothing beyond the ambient hum of the ship's systems and distant combat. 3 hostiles ahead, Michael whispered, his certainty unwavering. 2 with energy weapons, 1 with something heavier, mining charge or breaching device. Draven's expression hardened with skepticism. How could you possibly know? His question was answered by the distinctive whine of an energy rifle warming up around the corner. Diana reacted instantly, signaling the group to take defensive positions along the corridor's recessed maintenance alcoves. They're attempting to breach the engineering security door. Michael continued, his voice barely audible. Standard Raxian approach, 2 providing cover, while a specialist works the lock. Diana's suspicion deepened. Your knowledge of Raxian tactics is impressive for a diplomat. Michael's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. Earth's diplomatic corps is unconventional in its training methods. He removed his formal jacket, revealing a simple gray tunic beneath. The garment had disguised his true physique, lean but corded with muscle unexpected in a man his age. I suggest a flanking approach. Commander Draven and I can create a diversion while you and your guards access engineering through the secondary maintenance shaft. Draven bristled visibly. You presume to dictate combat strategy to Calarian warriors. I presume nothing, Michael replied evenly. I suggest an approach based on tactical assessment. The decision remains with the princess. Diana's combat instincts overrode her lingering suspicion. Michael's suggestion aligned with optimal strategy. Proceed as suggested. Commander, you and the human will engage from this position. Guards Telvor and Marek with me. She moved to a maintenance panel several meters back, keying in an override code that revealed a narrow access tunnel. As she prepared to enter, Diana caught Michael's gaze. For an instant, something passed between them, not trust precisely, but a mutual recognition of competence. Try not to die, human, she said, the formality of her tone undermined by the faintest trace of genuine concern. Michael nodded once, that strange half-smile returning. I've made it through worse odds, princess. The Raxians should be more worried about their survival than mine. The maintenance gas shaft was cramped, even by human standards, forcing Diana and her guards to crouch as they navigated its narrow confines. Conduits and power relays lined the walls, occasionally emitting sparks from damage sustained during the attack. The princess moved with practiced efficiency, despite the ceremonial armor that marked her royal status. Her mind raced with calculations and questions. Michael Reed had revealed himself to be far more than the aging diplomat she had dismissed. His combat prowess was exceptional, even by Calarian standards, a species that venerated warfare as high art. More troubling was his inexplicable familiarity with both their vessel and the tactics of their attackers. The sound of weapons fire erupted from the corridor they had left Michael and Draven engaging the Raxian saboteurs. Diana quickened her pace, navigating the final junction before engineering. They emerged behind a massive coolant tank undetected by the Raxian forces that had breached the main engineering door. Diana assessed the situation with a warrior's precision. 3 Raxian marauders guarded the entrance, while 2 others worked at the main propulsion control console. The ship's engineering staff had been subdued. 2 bodies lay motionless near the entrance, while 3 others knelt with hands secured facing the wall. Diana signaled her guards, indicating positions and targets. They would have one chance at surprise. She drew her ceremonial dagger, feeling its perfect balance. A weapon passed down through 14 generations of Calarian royalty, its crystalline blade capable of slicing through standard combat armor. Their attack was swift and devastating. Diana's first throw embedded her dagger in the throat of the Raxian at the console. She was moving before the body hit the floor, retrieving her weapon in a fluid motion while engaging a second target. Her guards executed their attack with similar precision energy, pikes humming with deadly purpose. What should have been a perfectly coordinated assault faltered as a previously undetected Raxian emerged from behind a power coupling, wielding a heavy gravitational disruptor. The weapon discharged with a bass thrumming that distorted local gravity, sending Diana crashing into a bulkhead with crushing force. Her armor absorbed much of the impact, but pain lanced through her shoulder as the ceremonial plating cracked. The Raxian adjusted his aim for a killing shot. Diana struggled against the gravitational distortion, unable to dodge. The disruptor's emitter glowed as it recharged and then erupted in a shower of sparks as a kinetic round struck it with perfect precision. Michael Reed stood in the engineering doorway, the Raxian pistol held in a marksman's steady grip. Behind him, Commander Draven dispatched the final guard with efficient brutality. "You're wounded," Michael observed, crossing to Diana's position while maintaining awareness of their surroundings. "Superficial," she responded automatically, though the pain suggested otherwise. "Status of the attackers in the corridor." "Neutralized." He offered a hand to help her up, a gesture that would have seemed presumptuous hours earlier, but now felt natural. "We should secure engineering and assess the damage to critical systems." Diana accepted his assistance, noting the strength in his grip as he helped her stand. His hand was calloused in patterns inconsistent with diplomatic service. These were the hands of someone who had known physical labor and combat throughout a lifetime. "How did you know I needed assistance?" she asked, watching him carefully. "I didn't." Michael holstered the kinetic pistol. "We eliminated the threat into the corridor and proceeded to engineering as planned. The timing was fortunate." Diana wasn't certain she believed in such fortune, but now wasn't the time to pursue that line of questioning. She turned her attention to the engineering crew, directing her guards to free the survivors while she approached the main console. Damage report. She commanded the senior engineer, a veteran named Corlin, who had served on Imperial vessels for over 20 cycles. Corlin's hands moved across the control interface with practiced efficiency. Primary propulsion at 60% capacity. Shield generators operating at reduced power. Long-range communications offline. The Raxians were attempting to access navigational control when you intervened. Were they attempting to disable the ship or control it? Diana asked, the distinction critical to understanding their attackers' objectives. Control, Corlin confirmed. They were uploading a navigation override protocol. Given more time, they could have directed our course remotely. Michael joined them at the console, studying the diagnostic displays with unexpected familiarity. They wanted to capture the vessel intact, not destroy it. That's consistent with syndicate operations, not typical Raxian behavior. Diana turned sharply. Syndicate. You've mentioned this term before. A subtle change came over Michael's expression, a calculation visible only to someone trained to detect it. The Syndicate is a multi-species criminal organization operating throughout the sector. They typically employ Raxian marauders as frontline muscle while maintaining plausible deniability. And you know this, how exactly? Draven demanded, joining them at the console, his hand resting meaningfully on his sidearm. Intelligence briefings provided to diplomatic personnel entering potentially hostile regions, Michael replied smoothly. Standard Earth protocol. Diana wasn't convinced, but again, immediate threats demanded priority. Can we restore propulsion and shields to full capacity? Corlin nodded grimly. Given time, yes, but we remain vulnerable until repairs are complete. And the Raxian vessels outside, maintaining attack formation, Princess, Corlin confirmed. They seem to be waiting. For what? Diana mused, though she suspected the answer. If the boarding parties had succeeded in capturing the ship's control systems, the waiting vessels would have escorted them to some predetermined location. With that plan thwarted, their next move remained uncertain. Michael studied the tactical display. They've committed significant resources to this operation. They won't withdraw easily. He pointed to a secondary display showing the ship's current position. We're being drawn toward the densest region of the mist zone, an area with significant navigational hazards that would complicate any rescue attempt. Diana made her decision. Corlin prioritized shield restoration and propulsion. We need maneuverability more than weapons capacity at this moment. Commander Draven organized our remaining security forces to sweep the vessel deck by deck. I want every intruder eliminated. She turned to Michael, studying him with renewed intensity. You will accompany me to the tactical center. Your insights have proven valuable despite their unexplained origin. Michael inclined his head in acknowledgement, his diplomat's manners returning seamlessly. As you wish, Princess. As they exited engineering, Diana noticed that his movements had subtly shifted once more, the lethal predator receding behind the facade of the aging diplomat. The transition was so skillful she might have doubted her earlier observations, except for the bodies of Raxian marauders littering their path. Whatever Michael Reed truly was, he moved between identities with disturbing ease. A useful skill for a diplomat, perhaps, or for something altogether more dangerous. The tactical center, located deep within the vessel's protected core, had been designed to continue functioning even if the main command deck was compromised. Holographic displays provided comprehensive information about the ship's status surrounding space and ongoing threats. A team of officers worked at various stations, their expressions grim but disciplined. Diana assumed the command position, activating the central display with a gesture. Status of boarding parties, the security officer responded promptly. We've neutralized approximately 60% of the intruders, Princess. Fighting continues on decks 3 and 5. We estimate another 20 hostiles remain aboard. And our losses: 12 confirmed casualties among security personnel, 4 among general crew. Diana absorbed the information stoically, though each loss weighed on her. Calarian military philosophy accepted casualties as inevitable, but that did not make them less regrettable. She turned her attention to the tactical display showing the Raxian vessels surrounding them. What are our options for breaking their formation? The tactical officer manipulated the display, highlighting various trajectories. Limited, Princess. Their positioning blocks all standard escape vectors. Shield capacity remains insufficient for a direct engagement. Michael stood slightly apart, studying the displays with quiet intensity. Diana noticed how the tactical officers glanced at him uncertainly. His presence in this restricted area was unprecedented, particularly given his status as a foreign diplomat. Yet none questioned her decision to include him. "You have a suggestion, Mr. Reed," she asked, deliberately using his formal title, as a reminder to all present of his official status. Michael approached the central display, his movements measured and respectful of protocol. The Raxians who have positioned themselves expecting conventional Calarian tactics, direct engagement, or strategic withdrawal along optimal vectors. He indicated a region of space near the vessel's current position. However, this area contains a unique phenomenon, a gravimetric eddy created by the interaction between a collapsed neutron star and surrounding dust particles. The tactical officer frowned. That region is classified as a navigational hazard. The gravitational distortions would stress our structural integrity beyond safe parameters. Under normal circumstances, yes, Michael agreed. But if we modulate the shield harmonics to match the gravimetric frequency of the eddy, we could potentially ride its current rather than fight against it. The effect would be similar to how ancient Earth sailors used ocean currents to accelerate their vessels. Diana studied the suggested approach with growing interest. It was unorthodox, precisely the kind of maneuver that conventional Calarian tactics would dismiss as too risky. Yet the principle was sound based on fundamental physics rather than tactical doctrine. "Can this be done?" she asked the engineering officer who had joined them from the damaged primary systems. The officer hesitated. "Theoretically, yes. Shield harmonics can be adjusted to interact with external gravitational fields. But it's never been attempted under combat conditions. The calculations would need to be precise." "I can provide the necessary calculations," Michael offered quietly. "I've observed similar phenomena elsewhere." Diana caught the slight hesitation in his phrasing, another small inconsistency in his carefully maintained persona. What diplomat had experience with experimental gravimetric navigation? "Proceed," she ordered after a moment's consideration. "Upload the calculations to engineering. But understand this, if your strategy endangers this vessel, you will answer directly to me." Michael met her gaze with unexpected gravity. "I have no intention of endangering anyone aboard Princess. Quite the opposite." As he worked with the tactical systems inputting complex calculations with surprising speed, Diana observed him closely. His familiarity with advanced astrophysics and Calarian technology far exceeded what any reasonable diplomatic training would include. Each revelation about Michael Reed's capabilities only deepened the mystery of his true identity and purpose. The ship shuddered as another barrage from the Raxian vessels impacted their weakened shields. Warning indicators flashed across multiple displays. "Shield capacity at 34%, announced the defensive systems officer. "Further degradation will compromise structural integrity." "Engineering reports ready to implement the shield harmonic adjustments," the communications officer added. Diana made her decision. "Execute the maneuver. All personnel secure for potential gravitational distortion." The officers acknowledged the order, activating ship-wide alerts to prepare the crew. Diana activated a restraint field around her command position as the others did the same at their stations. Michael secured himself at an auxiliary console, his movements betraying no anxiety despite the experimental nature of the maneuver he had proposed. The engineering officer initiated the sequence. Shield harmonics adjusting to match gravimetric patterns, approaching eddy boundary in 30 seconds. The tactical display showed their vessel moving toward what appeared to be empty space, though sensor overlays revealed the invisible gravitational currents swirling in complex patterns. The Raxian vessels adjusted their formation clearly, confused by the unexpected trajectory. "They're realizing our intention," Michael observed calmly, "but they're too committed to their original strategy to adapt quickly enough." The first gravitational wave struck the ship, causing it to pitch violently despite the inertial dampeners. Diana maintained her balance, watching as the tactical displays flickered with interference from the gravitational distortions. Shield harmonics holding to reported engineering. Gravitational current captured. Velocity increasing beyond standard propulsion capacity. The sensation was unlike anything Diana had experienced in space travel, a peculiar sideways acceleration as the ship was caught in the invisible current. The Raxian vessels attempted to pursue, but their conventional approach left them fighting against the very forces propelling the Calarian vessel forward. "It's working," the tactical officer confirmed with undisguised surprise. "We're breaking free of their containment pattern, pursuing vessels unable to maintain formation integrity within the gravimetric distortion." Diana allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Status of shields, holding at current levels. The harmonics adjustment is actually reducing the stress on our defensive systems by converting the gravitational force into supplemental energy. Michael monitored his console with focused attention. "We should emerge from the eddy in approximately 3 minutes. I suggest having weapon systems ready. The Raxians will attempt to re-establish pursuit once we clear the distortion field." Diana studied their new position on the tactical display. They had effectively bypassed the Raxian blockade, gaining significant distance and a tactical advantage. It was an impressive maneuver, one that would have earned commendation for creativity in the Imperial Academy. "Well executed," she acknowledged, meeting Michael's gaze across the command center. "Though I remain curious how a human diplomat possesses such specialized knowledge of astrophysics and Calarian shield technology." A flicker of something amusement perhaps crossed Michael's features before disappearing behind his composed expression. "Let's just say my diplomatic career has included some unconventional assignments." Before Diana could press further, the ship's security alert system activated. Commander Draven's voice came through the communications system, tension evident beneath his disciplined tone. "Princess, we have a situation in the medical bay. One of the captured Raxian marauders has regained consciousness. He's demanding to speak with you and with the human." Diane exchanged a glance with Michael, whose expression had sharpened with sudden interest. "Specifically requested both of us," she confirmed. "Yes, Princess." His exact words were, "I will speak only to the Calarian Royal and the Arizona Ghost. He claims to have critical information regarding the attack." Diana watched Michael carefully as Draven relayed this information. The human's reaction was minimal. A slight narrowing of the eyes, nothing more. But she had spent enough time observing him to recognize that this development held significance. "Secure the prisoner and ensure he poses no threat," she ordered. "We will interrogate him once we've cleared the gravitational eddy." After closing the communication channel, Diana turned to Michael. "Arizona Ghost," she repeated, carefully testing the name. "The same title the Raxian used during the initial attack. Care to explain its significance?" Michael's expression remained unreadable. "A misattribution, most likely. Raiders often create mythologies around those who've defeated them in the past." "You expect me to believe that's coincidence?" Diana's tone made clear her skepticism. "That these marauders recognized you by a specific name, one that clearly carries weight among their kind." "What I believe," Michael replied carefully, "is that our immediate priority should be extracting whatever intelligence this prisoner possesses. His willingness to talk suggests factional divisions we might exploit." Diana recognized the deflection, but decided not to press for now. The tactical situation remained precarious, and Michael's expertise, however suspiciously acquired, had proven valuable. There would be time for a fuller reckoning once the crisis was contained. "Very well," she conceded, "but this conversation is not concluded human." "They rarely are," Michael replied, the phrase becoming something of a refrain between them. The medical bay had been converted to a makeshift detention area with security fields establishing containment zones around treatment beds. Most held injured crew members, but one corner had been isolated with additional security measures. Commander Draven stood vigilant outside this perimeter, his hand resting on his sidearm. The Raxian prisoner lay restrained on a medical bed, his massive form dwarfing the equipment designed for Calarian physiology. Despite multiple injuries, including a disruptor wound to his upper thorax, he maintained an alert gaze that followed Diana and Michael as they entered. "Princess Diana Thornton of the Imperial House of Kalar," Draven announced formally, following protocol despite the unusual circumstances. "And Michael Reed, Earth Diplomatic Envoy." The Raxian's yellow eyes narrowed, focusing on Michael with uncomfortable intensity. "Diplomatic Envoy," he repeated, the translator rendering his guttural language into standard Galactic. "Is that what you're calling yourself, Ghost?" Diana observed Michael carefully, noting how he maintained his composed diplomatic demeanor despite the prisoner's familiarity. "You requested this meeting," Diana stated coldly, assuming her royal authority. State your purpose or be returned to containment. The Raxian shifted his massive shoulders against the restraints. My name is Kral, sub-commander of the Razor Talon clan. Or I was until today's miscalculation. You mean your failed attack on an Imperial diplomatic vessel? Diana's tone was ice. Not my attack, princess. Kral's expression shifted to something resembling grim amusement. Merely my misfortune to be part of it. The Razor Talon does not typically target Calarian vessels. The risk-reward calculation is unfavorable. We were contracted specifically for this operation. By whom? Michael asked, speaking for the first time since entering. Krell's attention returned to the human, his expression a mixture of wariness and grudging respect. You already know the answer to that question. Ghost. The same organization you've been hunting for decades. The same shadow that looms over half the sector's illegal operations. The Syndicate, Michael stated rather than asked. The very same. Krell attempted to shift to a more comfortable position, wincing as the movement aggravated his injuries. They promised substantial payment and technological upgrades for our fleet. All we had to do was capture a single diplomatic vessel and deliver specific passengers to coordinates within the deep mist zone. Diana felt a chill despite the medical bay's regulated temperature. Specific passengers? Krell's yellow eyes moved between her and Michael. The Calarian princess and her human consort. Preferably alive, though the Syndicate representative implied that partial success would still be compensated. Diana processed this information rapidly. A targeted operation specifically aimed at capturing them both suggested deeper motives than simple piracy or ransom. The coordination and resources involved indicated significant planning. Why are you telling us this? Michael asked, his tone neutral, but his posture alert. Krell's expression hardened. Because the Syndicate betrayed us, the operation specifications they provided were deliberately flawed. They knew about the ship's defensive capabilities, knew about... He gestured toward Michael with his restrained hand. Him being aboard. My clan lost 37 warriors today in what was essentially a suicide mission. You expect sympathy for attempted piracy and murder? Diana asked coldly. I expect nothing from Calarian royalty, Krell replied with equal coldness. But I understand the concept of mutual enemies. The Syndicate used my clan as expendable pawns. I would see them answer for that betrayal. Michael studied the Raxian thoughtfully. You have specific information about Syndicate operations in this sector. I have coordinates, contact protocols, and identification codes for our Syndicate liaison. Krell's gaze remained fixed on Michael. But my information comes with a condition. Diana's expression hardened. You are in no position to negotiate prisoner. On the contrary, Princess, information is the only currency I possess and time is short. Krell gestured toward the medical monitor displaying his vital signs. Your medics have already determined that my injuries are terminal without specialized treatment, unavailable on this vessel. Diana glanced at the medical officer who stood nearby, receiving a subtle confirming nod. My condition is simple, Krell continued. Safe passage for my remaining clan members. Allow our surviving vessels to withdraw without pursuit, and I will provide everything I know about the Syndicate operation targeting you both. Diana considered the offer with cold calculation. Allowing Raxian marauders to escape after attacking an Imperial vessel violated Calarian protocols of justice. Yet the intelligence value potentially outweighed adherence to standard procedure, particularly if a larger threat remained. If your information proves valuable, she decided finally, I will permit your clan's withdrawal. But they must first stand down all hostile actions and retreat to a designated position away from our course. Krell nodded heavily. Acceptable terms. I will provide communication codes to contact the remaining vessels. Diana turned to Commander Draven. Establish the necessary communication link, but maintain security protocols. No direct access to our systems. As Draven moved to comply, Diana noticed Michael studying the Raxian with peculiar intensity. There was history here unspoken but palpable. You called me by a specific name, Michael said quietly once Draven had moved away. A name with significance among your kind. Krell's yellow eyes narrowed. The Arizona Ghost. The silent hunter who decimated 3 Raxian clans during the border conflicts 20 Earth years ago. The operative who infiltrated our stronghold on Taraxis Prime and extracted classified intelligence without triggering a single alarm. the human who moves like shadow and kills without sound or warning. Diana watched Michael's reaction closely, but his expression revealed nothing beyond polite attention. Stories grow in the telling, Michael replied dismissively, especially among warrior cultures that value battlefield mythology. Krell made a sound that might have been laughter, though it ended in a grimace of pain. Deny it if you wish, human. Your modesty changes nothing. Every Raxian raid commander knows to check if the Arizona Ghost might be present before accepting contracts involving Earth vessels or personnel. Those who ignore this precaution tend not to survive long enough to regret it. Diana absorbed this information with growing fascination and concern. Michael Reed, the mild-mannered diplomat she had dismissed as inconsequential, apparently possessed a reputation fearsome enough to give hardened Raxian marauders pause. Not just a skilled combatant, but someone whose exploits had passed into their cultural mythology. If the Syndicate knew I was aboard, Michael asked, why proceed with the operation? That, Krell replied grimly, is the question that should concern you both. The Syndicate does nothing without precise calculation of risk and reward. If they deem the potential capture of the Arizona Ghost worth the near-certain loss of their Raxian assets, he left the implication hanging. Commander Drevin returned his expression professionally neutral, despite the unusual negotiation occurring. Communication link established, Princess. Raxian vessels are standing by for authentication code from Sub-Commander Krell. Diana nodded. Proceed with the communication. Once verification is complete, the prisoner will provide his intelligence on Syndicate operations. As Drevin assisted Krell with the communication process, Diana drew Michael slightly aside, keeping her voice low. It seems your diplomatic cover story omits rather significant details about your past activities, she observed with dangerous calm. Michael met her gaze steadily. Every species has its legends and exaggerations. The Raxians are particularly prone to creating mythologies around their adversaries. And yet, Diana pressed, he recognized you instantly, as did the Marauder during the initial assault. That suggests more than simple mythology. A slight smile touched the corner of Michael's mouth, not amusement but something more complex. When this immediate crisis is contained, Princess, I will provide a more complete explanation of my background. But for now, I suggest we focus on the intelligence this Raxian is offering. The Syndicate represents a greater threat than a few marauding vessels. Diana recognized the deflection but acknowledged its practical wisdom. Whatever Michael Reed's true identity and purpose, his expertise remained valuable in their current situation. The reckoning could wait, but it would come. Very well, she conceded, but I will hold you to that promise, human. Michael inclined his head in acknowledgement. I would expect nothing less. They rejoined Drevin and Krell as the communication concluded. The Raxian vessels had acknowledged their commander's authentication and agreed to withdraw to a designated position away from the Kaelarian ship's course. The terms of our arrangement have been honored, Diana stated formally. Now fulfill your part of the bargain. What do you know of the Syndicate's operation against us? Krell's expression turned grim. The Syndicate maintains a hidden base deep within the Mist Zone coordinates I will provide. Our instructions were to deliver you both there alive if possible. What happens after delivery was not specified, but Syndicate operations typically end only one way for their targets. What is their interest in us specifically? Michael asked. That was not disclosed to me. Krell shifted uncomfortably as pain visibly coursed through his massive frame. But I overheard a communication between our liaison and his superior. They referred to something called Project Feralis in connection with your capture. Diana noted how Michael's posture subtly tensed at the mention of this project, though his expression remained neutral. This Syndicate base, she pressed, what can you tell us about its defenses and capabilities? It's a modified asteroid complex with significant defensive systems and docking facilities for at least 20 vessels. Security includes automated defense platforms and a complement of elite mercenaries, not Raxians but specialized combat units from various species. Krell's breathing had become more labored, the medical monitors showing declining vital signs. The facility is officially registered as a mining operation, but its true purpose is coordination of Syndicate activities throughout the sector. Michael leaned forward slightly. And the Syndicate leadership who controls these operations? Krell's expression darkened further. We dealt only with intermediaries, standard Syndicate protocol. but the operation targeting you both came with unusual authority markers. Whatever Project Feralis represents, it has the attention of the highest levels of Syndicate command. Diana processed this information with growing concern. The resources committed to their captures suggested objectives far beyond simple piracy or even political leverage. Something about their specific combination. A Kalarian royal and this particular human held special significance to a powerful criminal organization. One final question, Michael said, his tone deceptively casual. Did your syndicate contact mention any specific timeline or deadline for this operation? Krell's yellow eyes fixed on Michael with surprising intensity. 3 standard cycles. They emphasized that the window of opportunity was limited. After that, alternative measures would be implemented. He paused, struggling against weakening strength. They seemed unusually concerned about timing, almost desperate. The medical officer approached, checking the monitors with professional concern. The prisoner's condition is deteriorating rapidly. Further questioning may not be possible. Diana nodded acknowledgement, then addressed Krell formally. You have fulfilled your part of our arrangement. Your clan will be permitted to withdraw without pursuit as agreed. The Raxian's massive head inclined slightly in acknowledgement. His gaze, however, remained fixed on Michael. A word of warning, Ghost. Whatever the Syndicate seeks from you both, they commit resources on this scale only for operations of the highest priority. They will not stop with this failed attempt. I'm familiar with their persistence, Michael replied quietly. Krell made that sound again, the pained approximation of laughter. I don't doubt it. His voice weakened noticeably. In another life, perhaps we might have found honor in direct combat, you and I. Perhaps, Michael agreed, an unexpected respect in his tone. Rest well, warrior. Diana watched this exchange with fascination. Despite their adversarial relationship, a strange mutual recognition passed between the human and the dying Raxian, the acknowledgement that exists only between those who have faced death professionally across many years. As they exited the medical bay, leaving the Raxian under guard, despite his deteriorating condition, Diana studied Michael with renewed intensity. Project Feralis, she said quietly. You recognize that designation. Michael's expression revealed nothing, but he didn't attempt denial. It's a designation I haven't heard in many years, one I had hoped remained buried in the past. And yet here it is connected to an operation targeting us specifically. Diana stopped forcing him to face her directly. The time for partial truths has ended, human. What is Project Feralis, and why would the Syndicate commit such resources to capture us both? For a moment, Michael seemed to weigh his options, complex calculations visible behind his composed expression. Finally, he sighed, a small but genuine gesture that seemed to age him visibly. Project Feralis began as a classified research initiative approximately 40 Earth years ago. Its objective was the development of a new class of biosynthetic vessel ships that merged biological components with advanced technology to create something beyond conventional design limitations. Diana frowned. Biosynthetic vessels. My people experimented with similar concepts centuries ago. The ethical and practical complications proved insurmountable. Earth researchers reached similar conclusions, Michael acknowledged. The program was officially terminated after initial prototypes demonstrated concerning patterns of semi-autonomous behavior. All research was supposedly destroyed. But it wasn't, Diana guessed, putting pieces together. No, key researchers disappeared with critical data. Intelligence suggested they had been recruited by external interests, what would eventually evolve into the Syndicate organization we face today. Michael's gaze grew distant, remembering. I was part of the operation tasked with tracking and containing the knowledge before it could be weaponized. You were no diplomat then, Diana observed. A faint smile touched Michael's lips. No, not then. And what does this have to do with our current situation? Why target us specifically? Michael's expression turned grave. That's what concerns me most. The original Project Feralis required specific biological components to stabilize the synthetic integration. Components with unique genetic markers found only in certain compatible species. Understanding dawned with chilling clarity. Kalarian royalty possesses genetically distinct markers from the general population and evolutionary adaptation from our homeworld's unusual radiation patterns. Michael nodded grimly. Combined with certain rare human genetic profiles that were identified during the original research. Profiles you possess, Diana concluded. Yes. Michael's admission carried the weight of decades, which means the syndicate has somehow obtained the original research data, including genetic compatibility mapping. They don't want us for ransom or political leverage, Princess. They want our genetic material for whatever version of Project Feralis they're attempting to resurrect. Diana absorbed this revelation with the disciplined calm of royal training. And based on the timeline mentioned by the Raxian, they're approaching some critical deadline in their research. Exactly. Michael's expression hardened with resolve, which means we're not merely fleeing a failed attack. We're racing against whatever alternative measures they mentioned. The tactical implications unfolded in Diana's mind with crystalline clarity. They faced an adversary with significant resources desperate to capture them for objectives that transcended conventional motivations. The situation had evolved from a simple pirate assault to something far more complex and dangerous. We need to reach secure space, she decided. Contact the Calarian fleet and alert Earth authorities about this syndicate operation. Michael nodded agreement, but his expression remained troubled. The syndicate controls significant portions of the communication network in this sector. Any transmission we send could be intercepted or traced. Then we maintain communication silence until we're clear of the mist zone, Diana concluded, and prepare for the possibility of additional attacks. As they walked toward the command center to implement these decisions, Diana studied Michael with new understanding. The mild-mannered diplomat had been a carefully crafted facade, one that had almost perfectly concealed the veteran operative beneath. How many other layers remained hidden? How many other secrets lay behind those watchful blue eyes? For now, their objectives aligned. But Diana had not forgotten the fundamental question that remained unanswered. Why had Earth sent one of their most formidable operatives disguised as an aging diplomat to accompany her on this mission? Was Michael Reed truly an ally in this crisis? Or did he serve agenda beyond the obvious threat? The answer she suspected might prove as dangerous as the syndicate itself. The command center hummed with focused urgency as Diana Thornton studied the holographic display showing their vessel's trajectory through the outer reaches of the mist zone. Tactical overlays indicated they had successfully broken free of the immediate Raxian pursuit, but the danger was far from over. The revelations from the dying Raxian commander had transformed what seemed like a simple pirate attack into something far more complex and disturbing. Michael Reed stood nearby, his posture once again that of the unassuming diplomat, though Diana now recognized this as merely one of many masks he wore with practiced ease. She could no longer view him as the mild-mannered human she had initially dismissed. The evidence of his true nature was too overwhelming: his combat skills, his tactical knowledge, his familiarity with classified operations, and most damning, the respect and fear he commanded from hardened Raxian warriors who knew him as the Arizona Ghost. "Commander Draven, report on ship status." Diana ordered, her voice steady despite the ache in her shoulder where her ceremonial armor had cracked during the engineering bay confrontation. Draven consulted his tactical display. "All boarders neutralized, Princess. 16 confirmed casualties among our crew. Engineering reports primary systems at 70% capacity and climbing. Shield regeneration proceeding at optimal rate. We should have full defensive capabilities within 2 standard hours. And our position relative to secure space, approximately 12 hours at current velocity before we reach the outer boundary of Alliance patrol routes. The mist zone continues to interfere with long-range communications. We remain isolated for the time being." Diana absorbed this information with the disciplined calm of royal training. The situation remained precarious. Their vessel damaged, communication limited, and an adversary of unknown strength pursuing them for reasons that grew more disturbing with each revelation. "Maintain current heading and alert status," she decided. "All security personnel to remain at combat readiness. Commander, you have the bridge. I require a private conference with our diplomatic envoy." Draven's expression tightened at the order, his distrust of Michael barely concealed beneath military discipline. "Princess, given recent events, I strongly advise against." "Your concern is noted, Commander." Diana cut him off with the authority of centuries of royal heritage. "But this discussion is necessary for ship security. You will be notified immediately if any new threats emerge." Driven bowed stiffly, protocol overriding his personal objections. As you command, Princess. Diana turned to Michael. The tactical analysis room now. The human followed her silently through the ship's corridors past crew members working to repair damage from the attack. Diana noted how they regarded Michael with a mixture of curiosity and newfound respect. Word had spread quickly about his unexpected combat prowess during the boarding action. The tactical analysis room, designed for secure strategic planning, sealed behind them with a soft pneumatic hiss. Diana activated privacy protocols, ensuring their conversation would remain contained. She then turned to face Michael directly, her violet eyes reflecting the determination that had made the Kalarian royal line legendary among the stars. No more deflections, no more half-truths. You will explain in detail who you really are and what you know about Project Feralis. Her tone left no room for evasion. The safety of this vessel and potentially both our worlds depends on complete transparency. Michael regarded her thoughtfully, as if making complex calculations behind his composed expression. Then, with a slight nod, he seemed to come to a decision. Computer recognized voice pattern. Read Michael J. Authorization code, Sierra Echo November Tango, India November Echo Lima. Activate sealed personnel file classification Umbra 9. The holographic display in the center of the room flickered, then projected a personnel file marked with Earth's highest security designation. Diana studied it with growing astonishment as details of Michael Reed's true career materialized before her. 47 years of active service. Michael began, his voice carrying the weight of decades. Not in diplomatic corps, but in Earth's Strategic Operations Division. Specifically the Interstellar Threat Assessment and Neutralization Unit, what some call shadow operatives. The display showed a much younger Michael in various military configurations operating across a dozen worlds, his service record heavily redacted even at this security level. My specialization was deep cover operations in non-terrestrial environments, particularly targeting organizations that threatened Earth's security through advanced technology acquisition. Michael's blue eyes reflected the glow of the holographic display. Project Feralis was one of my first major assignments. Diana studied both the display and the man before her. You're not simply retired operatives serving as a convenient diplomatic cover. You were specifically selected for this mission because of your history with Feralis. Yes, Michael's admission carried no apology. Earth intelligence detected concerning patterns 6 months ago, unusual resource acquisitions, movement of known syndicate assets, targeted data breaches of classified archives. The pattern matched protocols associated with the original Feralis researchers. And your superiors didn't think to share this information with Kalarian authorities with me. Diana's tone carried the edge of royal indignation. The intelligence was fragmentary, the connection to Kalarian speculative at best. Michael gestured to the display, bringing up additional files. Until we intercepted partial communications suggesting interest in the unique genetic properties of Kalarian royalty. By then, the diplomatic mission, your mission, was already being planned. So rather than alert us to potential danger, Earth authorities decided to embed you as my, bodyguard by both? Diana's voice remained controlled despite her anger. Protector and investigator, Michael corrected calmly. My mission was to confirm whether the syndicate truly had resurrected Feralis, determine their objectives, and ensure your safety while doing so. The political marriage provided perfect cover for constant proximity. Diana absorbed this revelation with growing understanding. The human diplomatic corps didn't select a retired veteran by coincidence. This entire arrangement was orchestrated to place you at my side. Not entirely. Michael's expression softened slightly. The peace treaty is genuine. The diplomatic mission, legitimate. I was simply added to the equation when the threat assessment reached certain thresholds. And what exactly is this threshold exceeding threat? Diana pressed. You've mentioned biosynthetic vessels, but the specifics remain conveniently vague. Michael's expression grew grave. Project Feralis began as theoretical research into melding organic components with advanced technology to create vessels with capabilities beyond conventional design limitations. Ships that could heal themselves, adapt to environments, even potentially evolve. The initial concept was defensive, creating exploration vessels that could survive extreme conditions. But the research took a darker turn, Diana guessed, as advanced technology often does. Michael nodded. The research team began experimenting with increasingly sophisticated organic components. They discovered that certain genetic markers incredibly rare in humans, but present in several other species, including Calarian royalty, created a unique biological interface that dramatically enhanced performance. Diana began connecting pieces, and when combined correctly, the preliminary results suggested capabilities that frightened even the researchers themselves. Vessels with not just autonomous function, but potentially something approaching consciousness. Ships that could potentially replicate and evolve without direct control. Michael's voice carried the weight of someone who had witnessed the consequences firsthand. The program was officially terminated, all research quarantined, all prototypes destroyed. Except they weren't, Dana concluded. No, the lead researchers disappeared along with key data and experimental materials. My team tracked them across 17 systems before finally cornering the primary scientist on a remote outpost. Michael's expression darkened with memory, but not before he had already transferred critical research components to unknown parties. Parties we now know evolved into the current syndicate leadership. Diana processed this information with tactical precision. And now, decades later, they've somehow acquired additional research that identified both of us as ideal genetic donors for whatever they're attempting to create. Exactly, Michael confirmed, which makes this more than a simple diplomatic security concern. If they succeed in creating what the original researchers theorized, a fully autonomous biosynthetic vessel with advanced evolutionary capabilities, it would represent a threat to every established power in the sector, including both Earth and the Calarian Empire. Diana finished the implications unfolding with disturbing clarity, especially Earth and Kalar, as our genetic markers are apparently crucial to its development. The vessel would likely be programmed with inherent hostility toward both our species. Diana turned away, pacing the confines of the tactical room as she absorbed these revelations. Everything about her mission, her diplomatic marriage, their journey, even the ship's course through the mist zone had been calculated, not just for political purposes, but as part of a complex intelligence operation she'd been kept entirely unaware of. Your deception put my crew at risk, she said, finally turning back to face him. They deserve to know the true nature of the threat we faced. And how would that information have changed our tactical preparation, Michael asked with the pragmatism of decades in the field. Would revealing my true identity and speculative intelligence about a potential threat have improved our security posture? Or would it have simply created uncertainty and potential leaks? Diana recognized the cold logic of his position, even as she resented it. In her royal training, she had studied the same principles of information containment and operational security. Now that circumstances have forced your hand, what else haven't you revealed? She demanded. I've shared everything relevant to our immediate situation, Michael replied. But there's one additional element that may prove significant in the coming hours. He manipulated the holographic display, bringing up a schematic of what appeared to be a communication device, unlike anything in standard Calarian or Earth technology. This was embedded in my diplomatic credentials, passive until activated, undetectable by standard security scans. Michael pointed to specific components in the schematic. A quantum-entangled emergency beacon. If triggered, it would alert Earth's rapid response team stationed at the edge of this sector. Unfortunately, activation requires specific conditions, namely direct line of sight to a stellar body without atmospheric or gravitational interference. Conditions we don't currently have within the mist zone, Deanna observed. Correct. But which we will have in approximately 4 hours when our current trajectory takes us through a gravitational window near the Lyran pulsar. Diana studied the device specifications with growing interest. This response team, what capabilities would they bring? A modified stealth corvette with advanced weaponry and a 12-person special operations team. Not enough to engage a full syndicate fleet, but potentially sufficient to extract us or provide critical support until reinforcements arrive. Diana weighed this new information against her remaining suspicions. Michael Reed had deceived her, operated covertly aboard her vessel, and potentially drawn them into a conflict she hadn't been prepared for. Yet his actions during the attack had undeniably saved lives, perhaps including her own. And if his intelligence about Project Feralis was accurate, The threat extended far beyond their immediate situation. Very well, she decided finally. We will adjust course to optimize conditions for your beacon's activation. But understand this, from this moment forward, you operate with complete transparency. No more hidden capabilities or secret communications. You are effectively now part of my command structure, and you will function accordingly. Michael regarded her with what might have been respect. Understood, Princess. And drop the diplomatic formality, she added with unexpected sharpness. If we're to work together effectively, we should at least acknowledge who we're actually working with. A genuine smile, perhaps the first she'd seen from him, touched Michael's lips. Fair enough, Diana. The princess raised an eyebrow at the familiar address but didn't correct him. Instead, she deactivated the privacy protocols and moved toward the door. We should return to the command center. I need to brief Commander Draven on our adjusted course. As they exited, Diana noticed Michael's posture subtly shifting. Once again, the seasoned operative receding behind the diplomat's facade despite their recent understanding. It was, she realized, likely an ingrained survival mechanism after decades of covert operations. Old habits, she observed quietly. Michael glanced at her, surprised at her perception. They tend to keep you alive in my line of work. And what exactly would you call your line of work? Diana asked as they walked the corridor back toward the command center. Michael considered this for a moment. Problem solver, he offered finally, for situations too complex or sensitive for conventional approaches. A convenient euphemism for assassin, Diana noted without judgment. I've worn many hats over many years, Michael replied evenly. Not all of them involved elimination targets. Some of my most successful operations left no evidence they had occurred at all. Before Diana could respond, the ship's alert system activated with a pulsing amber warning. Commander Draven's voice came through the communication system with controlled urgency. Princess, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected multiple vessels on intercept course. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures suggest advanced propulsion in weapon systems. Not Raxian. ETA approximately 50 minutes. Diana and Michael exchanged a look of grim understanding before quickening their pace toward the command center. The syndicate had apparently implemented their alternative measures sooner than anticipated. The command center pulsed with controlled urgency as Diana and Michael entered. Tactical displays showed 3 vessels approaching from the outer reaches of the mist zone, their trajectory clearly targeting the Calarian diplomatic ship. Analysis of approaching vessels, Diana commanded, assuming her position at the central console. The tactical officer manipulated the display, enhancing sensor readings. Unusual configuration, Princess, not matching any known registry in our database. Approximately Corvette class in size, but energy signatures suggest capabilities exceeding standard military vessels of that classification. Michael studied the readings with focused intensity. Those aren't conventional ships, he observed quietly. The whole structure shows biological components integrated with synthetic materials. Diana felt a chill of recognition. Prototype Feralis vessels. Early generation, but yes, Michael confirmed, the energy patterns are consistent with theoretical projections from the original research data. Commander Draven frowned deeply. Biological ships. That's impossible. Not impossible, Commander. Simply beyond conventional engineering parameters. Michael replied, his focus remaining on the tactical display. And potentially more dangerous than anything in your combat experience. Diana made swift calculations. Time until we reach the gravitational window for beacon activation. 3 hours, 22 minutes at current velocity, the navigation officer reported. And time until intercept by approaching vessels. 47 minutes at their current acceleration. The tactical situation was clear and concerning. They would be engaged by unknown vessels with potentially superior capabilities long before they could summon reinforcements. Diana turned to Michael. These prototype vessels, what weaknesses might they possess? Michael considered the question with the focused intensity of a veteran's strategist. Early Feralis designs struggled with energy regulation. The biological components required precise balance between power input and consumption. Too much or too little could destabilize the entire system. Could we exploit that vulnerability? Diana pressed. Potentially. A precisely calibrated energy, pulse directed at specific junction points between biological and synthetic components, might overload their regulatory systems. Michael manipulated the tactical display, highlighting theoretical weak points based on the sensor readings. But the targeting would need to be exact, and we'd have to penetrate whatever defensive systems they've developed. Diana turned to her weapons officer. Can our primary energy cannons be modified to deliver the specific pulse pattern needed? The officer studied the specifications Michael had provided. Yes, Princess, but it would require reconfiguring the emission harmonics. Engineering would need approximately 30 minutes to implement the necessary adjustments. Begin immediately, Diana ordered, and prepare a tactical withdrawal pattern to maximize distance until modifications are complete. As the crew moved with disciplined efficiency to execute her orders, Michael stepped closer to Diana, lowering his voice. There's another factor to consider. If these are indeed Ferala's prototypes, they may possess limited but functional biocognitive systems. Meaning they don't just follow programming, they learn, adapt, potentially even anticipate. Standard evasive patterns might become increasingly less effective as they analyze our movements. Diana absorbed this unsettling information. Recommendations: randomize maneuvers rather than sequential patterns, and if possible, separate the vessels to prevent them from sharing tactical data. Michael's expression was grim but determined. These aren't simply ships with captains making decisions. They're essentially predatory organisms with technological enhancements. Diana conveyed these adjustments to her tactical officer, who began implementing the recommended approach. The princess then turned back to Michael. If these are merely prototypes, as you suggest, why would the syndicate deploy them now? Surely such valuable assets wouldn't be risked prematurely. Unless they're desperate, Michael replied thoughtfully. Krell mentioned a specific timeline, 3 standard cycles before alternative measures would be implemented. My suspicion is that these prototypes represent those measures, functional but incomplete vessels deployed out of necessity rather than optimal readiness, which suggests we're approaching some critical deadline in their research, Diana concluded. Something significant enough to risk exposing their technological advances. Exactly. Michael's expression darkened with concern. And that makes them potentially more dangerous. Desperation tends to increase risk tolerance. The navigation officer interrupted their discussion. Princess, the pursuing vessels have increased acceleration beyond projected parameters. Revised intercept time 32 minutes. Diana processed this update with the calm efficiency of royal training. Status of weapons modifications. Engineering reports 24 minutes required for completion, the tactical officer replied. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. They would be engaged before their primary defensive strategy could be implemented. Diana's mind raced through alternative approaches with practiced precision. Deploy countermeasure packages along our withdrawal vector, she ordered. Program them to emit energy signatures mimicking our vessel's specific output. Attempting to confuse their tracking systems, Michael nodded in approval. Good strategy. And prepare auxiliary craft for potential deployment, Diana continued. If we can't outrun them, perhaps we can divide their attention. As her orders were acknowledged and implemented, Diana noticed Michael studying the tactical display with unusual intensity, his expression suggesting complex calculations in progress. You have an additional suggestion, she prompted. Michael hesitated briefly before responding. The mist zone's gravitational anomalies, we use them to escape the Raxian vessels. But there's another approach we might consider. He manipulated the display to highlight a particular region along their current trajectory. This area contains a concentrated pocket of charged particles, likely remnants of an ancient supernova. If we could disperse those particles in the path of the pursuing vessels, the interaction with their biosynthetic systems could potentially disrupt their functionality. Diana finished, immediately grasping the concept. But how would we disperse the particles with sufficient concentration to be effective? Michael's expression turned grim. A controlled overload of our port shield generator would create the necessary dispersion wave. The particles would be temporarily energized and expand outward along our wake. Commander Draven, who had been listening to their exchange, interjected sharply. That would leave our port side completely vulnerable to attack. It's tactical suicide. Not if timed correctly, Michael countered calmly. The disruption would affect their systems before they could exploit our vulnerability, and shield functionality could be restored within minutes, albeit at reduced capacity. Diana weighed the proposal with the careful assessment of a seasoned tactician. The risk was significant, but so was the potential advantage. Standard defensive approaches seemed unlikely to prevail against these unknown vessels with their unconventional capabilities. Prepare the shield generator for controlled overload, she decided, but maintain ability to abort until the final moment. This is our contingency if the weapons modifications cannot be completed in time. The command center hummed with focused activity as her orders were executed. Diana found herself in the unfamiliar position of implementing battle strategy based on recommendations from a human operative she had until recently dismissed as a mere diplomat. Yet she couldn't deny the expertise behind his suggestions. This was clearly a man who had faced desperate situations before and emerged victorious. "Princess," the tactical officer called urgently, "the pursuing vessels have altered formation. They're spreading to create an envelopment pattern." On the tactical display, the three biosynthetic ships had indeed shifted from their direct pursuit trajectory to a wider approach that would potentially surround their vessel. It was a sophisticated maneuver that suggested coordination beyond simple programmed responses. "They're adapting to our evasive pattern," Michael observed grimly. "As I feared, they possess some level of tactical intelligence." Diana made an immediate decision. "Implement countermeasure deployment now and prepare for controlled shield overload on my command." As her orders were executed, the ship shuddered slightly from sudden acceleration as the helmsman implemented another randomized evasive maneuver. Diana maintained her balance with practiced ease, her focus unwavering from the tactical situation unfolding before them. "Princess," the communications officer called, "we're detecting unusual energy patterns from the pursuing vessels. They appear to be attempting to establish some form of communication link with our systems." Michael moved swiftly to the communications console, studying the energy signature with visible concern. "That's not communication, it's an infiltration attempt. The biosynthetic components generate unique energy patterns that can potentially interface with conventional systems." "A technological form of boarding," Diana realized. "They're attempting to access our systems remotely." "Exactly." Michael's hands moved across the control interface with surprising familiarity. "Isolate all primary systems and initiate communications blackout protocols. Nothing in, nothing out except through manual override." As the crew implemented these defensive measures, Diana turned to Michael with renewed urgency. "Time is against us. We need to implement your particle dispersion strategy now before they establish any form of system intrusion." Michael nodded grimly. "Engineering should focus full priority on the shield generator overload sequence. The weapons modifications become secondary if we can't maintain system integrity." Diana relayed these adjusted priorities to her engineering team, who acknowledged with professional efficiency despite the unconventional nature of the orders. Years of Imperial fleet training had prepared them to execute even the most unusual tactical decisions without hesitation. "Approaching particle field in 2 minutes," the navigation officer reported. "Pursuing vessels maintaining envelopment course. Intercept now projected at 18 minutes. "Status of shield generator overload preparations," Diana demanded. "Sequence programmed and ready for execution, Princess," came the response from engineering. "But I must emphasize this will reduce our defensive capabilities by approximately 40% for at least 6 minutes following implementation." "Understood. Stand by for command execution." Diana turned to Michael, her violet eyes meeting his blue ones with silent question. This was his strategy based on specialized knowledge she didn't possess. The risk to her vessel and crew was significant. "It will work," he stated with quiet confidence. "I've seen these systems in their early development stages. The biological components are particularly vulnerable to energized particle exposure." Diana made her decision. "On my mark, execute shield generator overload sequence." She watched the tactical display as they approached the optimal position relative to both the particle field and pursuing vessels. Timing would be critical for maximum effect. 3, 2, 1, execute. The ship trembled as the port shield generator initiated its controlled overload. Energy readings spiked dramatically on the engineering displays, and a visible distortion wave emanated from their vessel's port side, expanding rapidly outward and energizing the particle field they were passing through. "Particle dispersion wave expanding as predicted," the science officer reported, monitoring the phenomenon. "Density and charge levels optimal." Diana watched the tactical display intently as the pursuing vessels entered the energized particle field. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then sensor readings began showing erratic energy fluctuations from all three biosynthetic ships. Their propulsion systems are destabilizing, the tactical officer reported with barely contained surprise. Energy outputs fluctuating wildly. They're losing formation coherence. Michael studied the readings with intense focus. The biological components are reacting to the charged particles, essentially experiencing something analogous to an allergic reaction. Their systems are attempting to compensate, but the integration points between organic and synthetic components can't handle the conflicting responses. On the display, one of the pursuing vessels had already fallen significantly behind its propulsion systems, apparently severely compromised. The other two maintained pursuit, but at reduced speed and with erratic movement patterns suggesting significant internal systems disruption. It's working better than anticipated, Diana observed, allowing herself a moment of cautious optimism. The prototypes are less advanced than I feared, Michael agreed. Their biological integration must still be at an early stage, making them more vulnerable to environmental disruption. Princess, the tactical officer interrupted, one of the pursuing vessels has altered course. It appears to be withdrawing from the engagement zone. Indeed, the most severely affected vessel had completely reversed course, apparently abandoning the pursuit. The remaining two continued forward, but with visibly compromised capabilities. Time until we reach the gravitational window for beacon activation? Diana asked. 2 hours 46 minutes at current velocity, came the response, and revised intercept time for remaining pursuers. At their current reduced velocity, approximately 52 minutes. The tactical situation had improved significantly, but they weren't safe yet. The remaining vessels still represented a substantial threat, particularly with their portside shields operating at reduced capacity. Maintain current course and speed, Diana ordered. Engineering prioritize restoration of portside shield functionality. Weapons division continue modifications to the primary energy cannons as originally planned. We may yet need that capability. As the crew acknowledged her orders, Diana stepped slightly aside with Michael speaking quietly. Your strategy bought us valuable time, but I suspect this is merely the first wave of whatever the Syndicate has planned. Michael nodded grimly. Agreed. These were clearly prototype vessels with limited capabilities. The fact that they deployed them at all suggests a certain desperation, but also indicates they likely have more substantial resources in reserve. Resources they may bring to bear before we reach the gravitational window for your beacon. It's a distinct possibility we should prepare for, Michael acknowledged. Diana studied him thoughtfully. The human had proven his value repeatedly since the crisis began, first in combat, then in tactical planning, and now in strategic implementation. His knowledge of their adversary had already saved the ship once, possibly twice. Then we should use this time to prepare additional contingencies, she decided. Your knowledge of Syndicate operations and Feralis technology may be our greatest advantage. For the first time, Michael's expression reflected something beyond professional composure, a momentary glimpse of genuine emotion that might have been surprise or perhaps appreciation for her acknowledgement of his contribution. I've spent most of my life tracking and countering threats like this, he said quietly. It's refreshing to operate without the constraints of diplomatic pretense. Then consider yourself officially relieved of those constraints, Arizona Ghost, Diana replied, using the name with deliberate emphasis. For the duration of this crisis, I need the operative, not the diplomat. Michael inclined his head in acknowledgement, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. As you wish, Princess. As they rejoined the main tactical discussion, Diana found herself reassessing her human companion once again. The political husband she had initially dismissed had revealed himself to be a formidable ally, with exactly the specialized knowledge and experience they needed to survive this encounter. But as the immediate crisis abated slightly, the larger questions remained. Why had the Syndicate become so desperate to obtain their genetic material now after decades of apparent dormancy? What critical threshold were they approaching that justified exposing their advanced biosynthetic technology? And perhaps most concerning, what might they be willing to risk to ensure success? The answers would come in time, Diana suspected. For now, they had survived the first true test of what promised to be a far more complex confrontation. The Arizona Ghost and the Calarian Princess, an unlikely alliance against a threat neither of their worlds fully understood. And somewhere ahead beyond the swirling gravitational anomalies of the mist zone lay the opportunity to summon reinforcements that might finally tip the scales in their favor, if they could reach the gravitational window alive. The next 2 hours passed in tense vigilance. Diana and Michael worked alongside the engineering crew, preparing contingencies and reinforcing damaged systems. The remaining Ferali's prototypes maintained pursuit at reduced capacity, their erratic movements suggesting ongoing systems conflicts from the particle exposure. Approaching gravitational window in 3 minutes, the navigation officer announced, his voice tight with anticipation. Spatial distortion at optimal parameters. Diana stood at the command console, watching the tactical display with unwavering focus. The gravitational anomalies of the mist zone were thinning, revealing the pulsing radiance of the Lyran pulsar, a stellar remnant whose precise gravitational signature would make the quantum entanglement beacon possible. Status of pursuing vessels, she asked. Maintaining distance at approximately 12 minutes behind our position, the tactical officer reported. They appear to be regrouping rather than accelerating, possible preparation for coordinated attack. Michael approached, removing a small device from his wrist chronometer, the quantum beacon Diana had only learned about hours earlier. Its design was elegantly simple, belying the advanced technology within. The window will be brief, he explained, manipulating settings on the device. Approximately 40 seconds of optimal alignment before the gravitational interference returns. Diana nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Our shields and weapons are at near optimal capacity. We can hold off another attack if necessary. Michael's eyes met hers with unexpected gravity. Regardless of what happens next, I want to acknowledge something. He paused, choosing his words with careful precision. Your adaptability and willingness to trust despite deception has been remarkable. Few commanders of any species would have shown such tactical flexibility. Coming from the veteran operative, Diana recognized this as high praise indeed. And your contributions have exceeded any diplomatic mission parameters, she replied with a hint of wry humor, though I still haven't forgiven the deception. A genuine smile touched Michael's weathered face. I would expect nothing less. Gravitational window opening, the science officer called. Optimal alignment in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Michael activated the beacon. The device emitted no sound, no visible energy signature, only a subtle vibration that seemed to resonate with the fabric of space itself. The pulsar's radiation washed over them through the viewports, bathing the command deck in rhythmic pulses of blue-white light. Transmission complete, Michael confirmed after several seconds. If the response team is at their designated position, we should have confirmation within 15 minutes. Those 15 minutes stretched into eternity. The crew maintained their stations with professional discipline, but Diana could feel the undercurrent of tension. The pursuing Feralis vessels had changed course, accelerating despite their compromised systems, a final desperate push to intercept before reinforcements could arrive. Multiple vessels emerging from superluminal transit. The tactical officer's announcement broke the tense silence. Configuration matches Earth Alliance stealth corvette design, 6 vessels, combat formation. The tactical display confirmed his report. The Earth vessels had emerged precisely between their position in the pursuing Ferali's prototypes, their formation a textbook intercept screen. A communication channel activated the holographic display, rendering the image of a stern-faced human woman in an unmarked tactical uniform. Diplomatic vessel Calarian Star, this is Commander Reyes of Earth Alliance Special Operations Division. We're receiving your emergency beacon and moving to intercept hostile forces. Please maintain current heading. Michael acknowledged with a nod of professional recognition. Perfect timing, Commander. We aim to please Ghost. A hint of respect colored the commander's formal tone. Extraction teams standing by once hostiles are neutralized. Full battle group inbound ETA 70 minutes. As the communication ended, Diana watched the tactical display with fascination. The Earth vessels moved with coordinated precision, targeting the compromised Feralis prototypes with specialized weapons clearly designed for this specific engagement. Your Earth authorities were more prepared than you implied, she observed to Michael. Contingency planning is something of a specialty, he admitted. Though I suspect this operation has been waiting in reserve for decades ever since the original Feralis project was compromised. Diana studied him thoughtfully. The human she had initially dismissed as an irrelevant political accessory had proven himself not merely a skilled operative, but a crucial ally, with exactly the knowledge and capabilities they had needed to survive. Beyond that, she had glimpsed something in him that resonated with her own warrior spirit, a dedication to duty and principle that transcended species differences. "What happens when we reach Earth space?" she asked. Michael's expression turned contemplative. "Officially, a diplomatic delegation returns safely despite pirate interference. Unofficially, he glanced at the tactical display showing the Earth vessels engaging the Ferali's prototypes. "We've confirmed the Syndicate has resurrected prohibited technology and targeted representatives of both our worlds. That changes everything." "Our political marriage was arranged for peace," Diana noted, "but it seems we may have found a more meaningful alliance." "Indeed." Michael's blue eyes held a depth of experience and something new, perhaps respect, perhaps something more. "The Syndicate has operated from shadows for too long. Perhaps it's time for the Ghost and the Princess to bring them into the light." As they watched Earth's forces secure their safety, Diana realized their journey was not ending, but transforming. What had begun as a political arrangement had become something neither of them could have anticipated, a partnership forged in crisis between two people who had discovered unexpected value in each other. The Arizona Ghost and the Calarian Princess, an alliance that might just change the course of interstellar history.